Millions of Americans who struggle with sleep apnea rely on CPAP machines and ventilators to get a good night's rest. Now, Philips is recalling its sleep aids after they were found to contain cancer-causing chemicals. And worse, by the way. Attorney Troy Back joins me with the details. You're heading this up. Thank you. I see you do these unusual projects. This is when I took a look at it, I thought it was a little unusual, but the more you dig into this story, it's pretty disturbing. Tell us the story.
Yeah, it really is. Well, a couple of things right off the start that sound sort of suspicious is that back in early April, Philips announced they had a new product line for the CPAPs and BiPAPs. And so they announced their new product launch. And then a couple weeks later, they sort of issued a release that, hey, the current CPAPs and BiPAPs that they have across the US that many people use are dangerously defective, right? Because they emit these types of chemicals. And then shortly after that, there was a recall. So it almost looks like, if you were very suspicious, that they're pushing people into their new model.
Yeah,
line, right?
Yeah. So what are the problems with this machine, Philips CPAP? What are the problems?
Well, it's got multiple problems, and we only know what Philips is telling us so far. And so we only know from reading the press release about the dangerously defective product. And basically, they're saying now that the foam which is used inside the machine to actually quiet the machine down, because if you can imagine, you don't want a very loud CPAP machine sitting on your nightstand. So that foam breaks down over time, and it also breaks down with heat and humidity. And so little particles will break off the foam, and the air actually in the machine travels through that foam and then up through the mass that you see there.
To the pulmonary system.
To the pulmonary system.
Becomes systemic.
Right.
Okay, let me add something that, I don't know if you're going to cover this, but it's important. You know, in the early days of breast implant cases, they used the same foam. The foam caused all types of autoimmune diseases, caused Raynaud's syndrome, scleroderma, whole host of really ugly autoimmune disease. I think what I'm reading on this has the potential to go the same way. It also caused reactive airways disease if it lodged in the lungs. Are those things that make any sense to you as you look at the story?
Yeah, it really does. I think you've hit it on all points there, Pap. It's just simply too early to know. But one thing we do know, that these users are using this machine every single night. They're using it 6 to 8 hours, some of them even longer every night, and it's right over their mouth. So you would think that that's a long duration. I talked to many people even over the weekend that have used these same devices 5 years, 6 years, etc. And so they're all worried. We've got millions of people across the U.S. worried because this recall alone affects almost 4 million people.
So you're a dual citizen, Canada and the U.S. Are they doing this in Canada too?
I think they're probably going to be doing it worldwide.
Yeah. So how long? How long did they know about this problem? Well, I handle the cases. You handle cases. When you look at the documents, think, oh my God, they've known about it for a decade. Right. They chose not to do anything because the CEO wanted to make a bigger bonus. Is that the case here, you think?
We don't know, because we only know at this point what they're telling us, but it is suspicious. Like I said earlier, it's suspicious that they had this new product launch and then they report to the FDA. They had I think 57 adverse event reports, which is basically when people across the US that are using the machine, their doctors or themselves reported to the FDA and said, hey, we're having this problem, or I've been diagnosed with this cancer or something. Well, all of those were reported up from by the company on the same day.
Yeah,
right?
Well, see, the problem is, as you pointed out to begin with, it becomes systemic. Once it's inhaled and it moves to the lungs, that moves to the blood system, it moves in the liver, it moves throughout the body. So it's very difficult for them to have a defense, well, gee, it's only a little bit. Right. We know the history of this foam. There's a whole bunch of science on this foam to tell us what it already does as far as causing problems. Well, look, good luck on this, okay?
Yeah, thanks,
you're going to be heading this up, and I think the thing that you're going to find is those documents we're talking about, they're going to be real bad.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think this is just the tip of the iceberg that we're seeing. And so and it's millions of people are very, very worried tonight.
Thank you for joining me, okay?
Thank you.
Finally tonight, some good news. The EPA has finally proposed limits to chemicals known as PFAS in our waterways. You think? They've been looking at it now for 30 years, and they've let us swallow all this poison. And now they say, well, maybe we'll do something. What is it?
Right, and that's the problem. It's not we're definitely doing something yet. It's we're going to start looking at what we should do in the future. This is not something that will happen under the Biden administration. This will take years. But again, you got to take a victory when you get it. And this is about as close as we get on the issue of PFAS, these deadly forever chemicals that cause all sorts of cancers in people who consume them. They're bioaccumulative. They build up over the years. And we have 44,000 facilities in the United States right this second that are dumping this in their wastewater. And it's getting into groundwater, getting into rivers. It's everywhere.
Go to Netflix and look up The Devil We Know. It was a documentary that these folks followed me around for 2 years. It's about the case I tried up in the Ohio River Valley. It is a startling story of the EPA and the buffoons that run the EPA allowing this poison to stay in our water, and presidency after presidency that'll take no action. Biden could close this down tomorrow, you understand.
Yeah.
He could close this down tomorrow. Just like Trump could have, just like Obama could have, just like Bush could have. They won't do it because that money coming from industry is just too big.
Right, and the proposal to set limits on it, that may not even be good enough, because what we're seeing now, there may be no safe exposure level.
There is none.
So limits do nothing. You're still going to be exposed, and you're still at risk.
Yeah. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
That's all for tonight, but find us on Twitter and Facebook at facebook.com/RT America's Lawyer. You can watch all RT America programs on DirecTV, channel 321, and also stream them live on YouTube. And be sure to check out RT's new portable app where you can watch all your favorite shows. I'm Mike Papantonio, and this is America's Lawyer, where every week we tell you the stories that corporate media is ordered not to tell because their advertisers won't let them or because their political involvement doesn't allow for it. Have a great night.